IB Nation, welcome back to the Irish Breakdown Podcast. We are live here on a Monday, which means it's time for Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. Ryan Roberts, Director of Recruiting here at irishbreakdown.com, joined by my guy, co-host of the Lucky Lefty Podcast, and a recruiting analyst here at irishbreakdown.com, Shaun Davis, recapping Irish invasion this past weekend. A lot of notes, a lot of news that we definitely want to get into, obviously, here, Shaun. I will also say that we're going to talk a little bit about wide receiver recruiting in the 2025 class, because I reported last night there's another official visitor that we are expecting this June, later this month. So there are several talented wide receivers that are set to make their trip to South Bend, Indiana this month. How it ends, a lot of different possibilities that are still on the table at wide receiver in 2025. So we're going to get into the two recent offers, two new official visitors coming to Notre Dame this month, and talk about their skill sets, early implications, how important these official visits are going to be for 2025 wide receiver recruiting. Then we're going to do a little 2026 talk. We're going to highlight some of our wish list guys early on. So might throw in a wide receiver or two now that quarterback Noah Grubbs is officially a part of the 2026 class for Notre Dame. But we're also just going to talk, generally speaking, about some guys that we really hope Notre Dame makes a strong push for. A little bit of an early realistic wish list for 2026. Again, wide receiver is going to be an emphasis on that one a little bit, but we're also just going to highlight some key targets on the board, because there's been a lot of questions, Shaun, on the message board. People are asking, we got our quarterback. Who are some of the top targets on the board in 2026? So that's why we're highlighting this in the third segment. Before we get going, though, Shaun Davis, how are you, my friend?
Hey, I'm wonderful, man. As you see, I'm no longer in my office today because the cicadas were just too much for me today. Like, my office is literally right off the backyard, and we have like a little my wife's area where she has all her plants and flowers, and they're just living there like it's a resort. And the noise got too much, bro. So I'm happy to. Do I sound better though? That's what I like to hear. Hope everybody had a great weekend too, man. It was fab. I don't know about you. It was fabulous weather up here in the Midwest.
It was beautiful, Shaun. It was so much that you ever have one of those dad moments where your kids, all they want to do, and obviously my oldest is a 3-year-old right now, but she already has a mind of her own where she's like, Daddy, I just want to watch something on TV. And I'm like, no, I had a moment this weekend. I'm like, no, we're going outside. We're going to go have fun. We're not sitting in the house all day. That happened this weekend, man. So yeah, that happens a lot, sir. That happens a lot. And I mean, we have to enjoy it, Shaun. I mean, dude, do you remember, I know that we have a little bit of an age gap, but like when I was young, I was never in the house, man. I was out playing football or playing basketball, hanging out with friends, doing something stupid. Like, why do kids not want to go out anymore? I know I sound like an old man yelling at the cloud right now, right? Like that meme, but it's so true, man. Let's enjoy the great weather, because it was like 75 and sunny this weekend in New Jersey. And my daughter wanted to stay inside for whatever reason.
Yeah, neighborhoods are quiet, right? Like, the parks were
Yep.
always full when we were growing up. And there was always someone in the street either throwing the football around or in someone's driveway hooping it up, whoever had the hoop on the block. So yeah, things have changed, man. Of course, video games, we all partake in that. So we understand that culture and how it's grown and become its own community. And even with the streaming services that highlight that, and streaming your own gaming page, and man, things are just crazy, man. So it's a different world. It's just a different world we live in, man.
I say that as the one thing I've been looking forward to the most the last couple of weeks is the new college football video game coming out. So I'm scolding someone for not wanting to stay in, but also I'm kind of looking forward to being able to stay in a few weeks here and be able to play some college football video games, man. But doesn't matter, Shaun. This is a rite of passage thing, right? My dad would yell at me if I was inside doing nothing. So now I have to yell at my kids and tell them, like, go play, go do something. Let's ride a bike. Let's ride a bike.
My mom didn't want to see us. Isn't that crazy now? No, this really goes to, I tell people all the time, when I was 12 years old, my mom and my dad trusted me to take public transportation to the west side of Chicago, and my uncles would meet me at the bottom of the L station to walk to my grandmother's house. That was like a 45, 50-minute trip for an 11, 12-year-old. And no one was thinking about me being hurt, abducted, anything like that. That wasn't even a thought from my parents. So now I think a lot of parents now are just worried about the safety of their children as well. Side, they don't.
That's fair. It's
They're
fair.
looking out the window like my mom. Dude, she knew where we were. We were around the corner playing basketball, or the next block playing football. Man, stop running in and out of my house. That's all we heard. Stay inside or stay outside, one or the other. And don't come in and drink water. You guys smell horribly. You smell like the outside. Use the hose on the side of the house if you're thirsty. Like that's what it was, man. So it's just different now. For a lot of different contributions and contributors.
Absolutely.
It's different.
But regardless, a lot of good outside action this weekend. Really terrible transition, but getting to the Irish Invasion, which for people that don't follow recruiting, the Irish Invasion is a big event every single year for Notre Dame. Gives them an opportunity to get kids on campus, firsthand coaching, because a lot of things that happen in this evaluation process, Shaun, that we talk about, right, is that you watch a kid's film, you talk to him, you're like, okay, cool. I like the film. I like the kid. But then on film at times, it's tough to really assess how big is a kid, how does he move comparative to other Division I potential athletes, like how do they kind of stack up? So getting them in an environment where they have equals, right? They have kids that are of equal ability and talent level. That's big time. That's why Notre Dame had Deuce Knight on campus this weekend for the Irish Invasion. That's why Elijah Burris was out there. That's why Christopher Burgess and Joseph Reif and Dominic Kulak. That's why they were all there to showcase, because they know that if a defensive back does really well against Elijah Burris, it's a good sign. If an offensive lineman is able to stop Christopher Burgess on a pass rush, that's a really good sign, right? So getting these players in one spot, body typing, getting measurements, seeing how they look on the field, all those things really matter tremendously. So on boards.irishbreakdown.com, my friends, boards.irishbreakdown.com, we are putting together an intel piece that was put up last night and is continuing to grow. Okay. So we're not going to hit every part of this intel, because why else would you ever go to boards.irishbreakdown.com if we gave you all this stuff for free? We need to make money, right? We need to make money. We need to feed our children. I think that goes without being said, right? Go sign up. It's very economical. Boards.irishbreakdown.com. You would have already known everything that I'm going to say before the show started. And there's going to be some stuff that I'm going to leave out intentionally that you would also know if you go over to boards.irishbreakdown.com, because Shaun, myself, Brian, we've been talking to a lot of kids, talking to a lot of sources, talking to a lot of people, giving you guys as much great information, but we are going to give you a lot of it today. So Shaun, first and foremost, man, I love Irish Invasion, dude. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that this is a great event each and every year. It's kind of like the pot of gold that we talk about every year, right? The offer event. This is very Notre Dame centric, right? This is a cool event for Notre Dame players to be able to get on campus, commits, coaches, and then also obviously potential targets in both we're talking 2025, we're talking 2026, we're talking 2027. A lot of really good players that were on campus this weekend. I want to start us out, Shaun, because there were technically 4 offers that were given out this past weekend. Okay. So technically 4. One was a preferred walk-on opportunity, which we're going to talk about in the 2025 class, but there was a 2026 player that was offered, Shaun, that I wanted to start this conversation out with, because I felt like, and I don't think we talked about this beforehand, but I felt like this was a no-brainer offer that was going to go out. If there was one player, and he was actually the first player, I think, on my I did a little thing for boards.irishbreakdown.com last week where I predicted some guys that I think could be up for offers if they have good workouts. And I'm pretty sure 2026 Flowwood, Mississippi, Hartfield Academy safety Brillan Wack was number 1 on that list, Shaun, because if you look at the offer list, 1, he's got a tremendously long list of Alabama, SEC schools. He's got a very healthy offer list to say that. I think he's like 30 offers deep at this point. He is also, for the ratings people out there, for the star rating guys, number 20 overall player in the 247 composite ranking and a 5-star recruit over there. So we're talking about a legit player. And I have an article that's going to come out soon that kind of highlighted some of the film of the players that were offered this weekend, Shaun. And Brillan Womack's legit, man. He was one of the standouts that Brian talked about. His film's really good. He's from the state of Mississippi. He's a high academic kid from the state of Mississippi. He's a kid that's getting offers from everybody around college football. This was great to see. And I will say this, Shaun. I'm going to say something. I'm going to kick it to you here, okay? Because I know that we've talked a little bit about Brillan in the past. Notre Dame made a big push this weekend. I've had the chance to chat a little bit with Brillan. I'll have a more in-depth interview in the future, I promise, for you all at irishbreakdown.com. Someone just said it. Deuce effect, the Deuce Knight effect. We always talk about wide receivers, Shaun. What skill position players are quarterbacks attracting? Funny enough, it's a quarterback, not even in the 2026 class, because Noah Grubbs was there as well. But the fact that you had a big-time quarterback from the state of Mississippi with a fellow 5-star from the state of Mississippi, I think that had a big help to Notre Dame making a strong push for Brillan Womack. Now, there's no immediate timeline as far as I want to make a decision on this date, right? Or in the next month or so. But I'm here to tell you right now, Shaun, Notre Dame is going to be a major player for Brillan Womack. And the big part of it was this offer this weekend, the conversation with the staff, and Deuce Knight, man. If Notre Dame ends up with Brillan Womack and committed in the 2026 class, you got to give another assist to Mr. Deuce Knight, who everyone just wants to kind of keep creating chaos around, but he's not even recruiting just 2025 players anymore, Shaun. He's recruiting some 2026 kids as well, including Brillan Womack.
Let me tell you something. This kid is X on the tab. He's an X on the tab kid. And you say, well, what does that mean? You know that X that's on the tab? When you're done with that tab, it took 2 plays into his film. Like, man, I can exit out of this. I'm done. There's nothing else to be said. He talked about his ranking. He talked about his film. He talked about the relationship and the Deuce effect. All of that is true. I just want to point out some other things, right, that could possibly contribute to this young man in Notre Dame being high on this list as we feel right now. Another thing surrounding this young man's recruitment, the best defensive back coach is no longer at Alabama. He's no longer at Alabama. So, yeah, you're probably going to have to fight Kirby. I don't think the defensive back coaches at Mississippi are on the level of Mike Mickens, which leads me to my final point. And maybe this is a layer we might get to later in the show. Mike Mickens being the defensive back coach for the entire secondary, I think it's going to start paying even more dividends in the 26 class and in the 27 class. It just is. Continuity, same voice, and increased communication and understanding the communication. Right. I have so much respect. I gained so much respect as I talk to high school coaches that have actually played on the college level and in the NFL. And I talked to one leading up to an invasion about one of his players. And he told me, Shaun, every play in football is about faith, because we're both, ministers. And he said, every play in football is about faith. You have to trust that the other 10 guys are going to do what they're supposed to do.
That's true.
And win. He said, every play. Doesn't matter how talented you are. You cannot get it done if you don't believe in the other guy. I was like, yo, I've never looked at football like that. Never. Not from that standpoint.
He's not wrong.
I've never done that.
He's not wrong at all.
So communication, especially in a linebacking core or a secondary, like to have one voice and to have that firm communication when everyone is speaking the same language and has an understanding of what's going on, creates a greater piece of faith. Right.
Sure.
And I was like, that's incredible. So when we started talking about this Womack kid, I think now we, as recruiting analysts, we have more faith that a kid like this would choose Notre Dame because of that one voice and who that voice is. I'm telling you, man, things are really this on a lot of levels says a lot. The first, a 5-star kid from the South came to South Bend for camp. That within itself speaks.
Shaun, Can I say something that's crazy? And again, I want to get your reaction at this because this just popped in my head as you're speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a testament to defensive back recruiting in general. If Notre Dame's, because again, they made a big move with Brillan Wack. We're not necessarily predicting them to end up with Brillan Wack, but they're certainly going to be a massive player for him. And they put themselves in a great position after this weekend. But Shaun, hypothetically speaking, let's say Notre Dame does get a Brillan Wack in the class. I had done research on this when Deuce Knight committed to Notre Dame in the 2025 class. Again, we're talking about 2026 safety Brillan Wack out of the state of Mississippi for the people that are just joining us live here on YouTube. Hit that like button, by the way. From 1995 to 2005, I'm sorry, to 2025, Shaun. So I'm a bad math guy. That's 30 years, right? That's 30 years. 30 years. We'll go to 2004. Okay, 2024, excuse me. So we'll say 29 years. In a 29-year span, Notre Dame had signed 3 players from the state of Mississippi in 29 years. 3 players. Okay, 3 players. If Notre Dame gets a commitment from Brillan Wack on top of Deuce Knight in the 2025 class, that would be 2 kids from the state of Mississippi in 2 years. Back-to-back classes. If you cut it off in 1996, then that means you would have as many guys in a 28-year span, in a 2-year span for Notre Dame, out of a state that you have no track record of traveling into consistently. 0 track record. Again, guys, that's 3 guys in 29 years. 3 guys in 29 years, and you can have back-to-back classes in the state of Mississippi. If there is not more proof that Marcus Freeman's net has been casted wider, if there is not more a example that Marcus Freeman and this staff are evaluating players differently and finding public school kids, Catholic school kids, everything in between that are potential fits for the University of Notre Dame, Shaun, I don't know what is, man. That's a wild stat. Just like the Texas one, where they signed 4 kids in one class, and the last 5 years under Brian Kelly, they only signed 3 in a 5-year period out of the state of Texas. Now, obviously, the talent out of Mississippi is not that of Texas, but the fact that you are going to get 2 players, maybe in a 2-year span, if you do close on Brillan Wack and you do make a big push for him, that is telling me that you did something that you had only done the same amount in a 28-year period. Talk to me about, because there's some people in this chat that occasionally say, "Oh, Marcus Freeman, he's recruiting about the same as Brian Kelly." BS, dude. Get that out of here. Casting wider nets. We call it going down a different aisle, right? Shopping down a different aisle. Marcus Freeman is breaking through some walls, sir, and we need to start appreciating that, man. This is different right now, Shaun. It's different.
It's called believing in who you are rather than using who you aren't as an excuse. Everybody can experience that in life. We all have strengths. We all have weaknesses. And if you're going to be successful, you have to believe in your ability to get the job done with your strengths and try to work on your weaknesses. That's what Notre Dame and Mark. Everyone knows the obstacles in recruiting for Notre Dame. They know the high academics, right? But to use the excuse that kids don't want to be student athletes. They don't want to operate at a high academic level. Well, guess what? This kid from Mississippi, which is a state that's not synonymous with higher education on all levels, somehow seems to be a good student. What do you know? A 5-star football player from the South that's a good student. They actually exist. They actually would like to come camp at Notre Dame. Oh, wow. What's happening? What is happening? Has the world changed? Or has a head coach that actually knows the strengths of Notre Dame and believes he can go get kids anywhere, stepped into the main office and said, "Follow me"?
Rid biases out of your mind of what can be successful at the University of Notre Dame, Shaun. That's what I think it is. Like, there's been a reevaluation of what types of kids can fit at the University of Notre Dame. That's what I feel it is personally. Like, I think that when Marcus Freeman came in here, I don't call them feeder schools because they're not technically feeder schools, but they were territories that you knew Notre Dame could have success in. And Notre Dame had fallen, I don't say lazy. They've been okay with going into those schools and pulling talent from those gaps, right? From those places. Marcus Freeman came in and said, "But what about Texas? We haven't hit that too hard. What about Florida? Hey, guys, I know you guys have never probably been to George County, Mississippi, but like there's a pretty good quarterback that academically can hang up here, right? And that could do this. And there's a safety in the 2026 class that we're going to push for now that's out of Flowood, Mississippi. I have no idea where Flowood, Mississippi is, but maybe he's a good student that actually cares about academics and can care about the University of Notre Dame. That's what it's saying to me, man. So again, we'll see what happens with Marcus Freeman, Shaun, but I'll tell you this to the rest of college football. We've talked about this before. You better not let Marcus Freeman win. You better not let him win. Because, Shaun, if he goes out there and they go 11-1 or 12-0 and they are a threat to potentially winning a national championship, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, by the way, Flowood is like 30 miles north of Jackson. That's right. That's a suburb of Jackson, Mississippi. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he probably claims Jackson. If you talk to him, he probably claims Jackson, Mississippi.
I'll ask him.
Yeah. So it's a cultural shift. It is someone, and I'm not about to water this conversation down based upon race. That's not where I'm going. Because culture is bigger than that in a lot of respects. The Notre Dame culture has been watered down by other programs negatively recruiting to kids for decades. Why would you go there? They try to give kids the excuse of race. They try to give kids the excuse of South Bend. They try to give kids the excuse of weather. South Bend, Indiana, and Notre Dame are an experience, a very unique experience that no one else in all of college football can copy, can facsimile. No one can offer the brand. No one can offer the mix of winning at the highest level, competing against the best and getting the best education. No one can offer that. No one. And instead of throwing dirt on it, like the previous head coach, Marcus Freeman has set it on the mantle and polished it and said, come check it out. Come look. He's bought in. It means something when he says, we are Notre Dame. It means something when you watch Noah Grubbs at the end of his video commitment presentation, commitment video say, choose hard. Yes. Yes, but for some reason, we've allowed ourselves to believe those that report when they tell us that, these kids are soft these days.
Right.
The best kids don't want to choose hard. Right. They don't want to be students and athletes. And it's a bunch of crock.
Sure.
It's a bunch of crock. I know as we talk to these kids and we delve into their GPAs and we find out their backgrounds and how they come from fantastic families, you start to find out, man, it's a lot of lies that have been put out there. And there are a lot of people in recruiting circles nationally, for whatever odd reason, maybe they're getting, money under the table, that seem to want to negatively speak about Notre Dame and what they can be and try to tell you Notre Dame is of the past. Ladies and gentlemen, don't believe that, because Marcus Freeman is showing you. He's showing you in real time what it is. And you saw another example of that in the participants of the Irish invasion with this Flowood, Mississippi 5-star showing up, showing out. And not only that, really loving the experience. A kid from Flowood, Mississippi came and actually loved the coaching staff, the experience, the campus, what he saw. He loved it. Yeah, yep. Go figure.
And Shaun, a weird one here is that, so this had been set up for like a month or so, right? I think Brillan had told me back like a month and a half ago that he was coming up for this, right? He didn't have an offer, Shaun. A 5-star from Flowood, Mississippi came up to South Bend, Indiana to earn an offer. That's what happened here, Shaun. That's what happened here. I think there's just so much good out of that visit. Whether Brillan Wack ends up with Notre Dame or not, I think that is a great sign of where this is going, is all I'm saying. I think it's a tremendous sign. I do think they made a big move with him. I don't think this one is anywhere necessarily close to over. And he also, a note that he gave me was that he's actually not heading back yet. He's also going to Ohio State over the next day or two as well. So he's doing a little bit of that Midwest swing that we always talk about a little bit. So he'll be in Ohio State. So we'll see if the great feelings stay true, even when he heads back to Mississippi, or it kind of wears off a little bit when he goes to Ohio State. Like that stuff happens too, right? But Notre Dame made a big push. There's no doubt about it. I think they can have stay power in this recruitment. I think that they can be potentially a team to beat when it all is said and done. Great visit for Brillan Wack, without question. Want to talk about the two other defensive backs that were offered. Only 3 defensive backs that were offered official offers. We had a preferred walk-on linebacker as well that we'll talk about here, Shaun. But 2 defensive backs in the 2027 class. Okay, I've had a chance to talk to one so far, hoping to get some more on the other. 2027 cornerback out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Is it Aliquippa? Is that how you pronounce that? I believe is how you pronounce it.
I believe that's what I've heard over the years. I'm sure people,
yeah.
if we're incorrect, they're going to correct us in the chat.
In the chat.
But
In the
that's
chat.
what I've heard.
Vocabulary for Ryan. Okay, so give me some phonetics in the chat if I'm pronouncing this incorrectly. Aliquippa, I believe so.
Has Salty joined us yet?
He has not. I don't think he's joined us yet, but I believe it is Aliquippa because I remember hearing Darrell Revis's induction ceremony to the Hall of Fame, and he's an Aliquippa guy. I know Mike Ditka was an Aliquippa guy as well.
Yes.
And I also believe, if I remember, let me make sure because I had written, Ty Law was an Aliquippa guy as well. So they have 3 NFL Hall of Famers from the same high school as Larry Moon III in Pittsburgh. So
some pretty good defensive backs come from that area.
Very good, to say the least. Yep. Apparently, I'm good on Aliquippa. That sounds great. Awesome. So Larry Moon III, which if you had saw Brian Driscoll's report on our message board at boards.com, Brian said this might have been the best defensive back there, regardless of class. Like that's including Brillan Wack, who we just talked about as a potential 5-star in the 2026 class, right?
Right.
So Larry Moon III was an offer this past weekend, as was Dakota Gurant, who is out of Harper Woods, Michigan High School, 6'1", 185 pounds. Very interesting one. Okay, Shaun, both these offers. Because one, we just talked about Aliquippa, right? Jonathan Baldwin went there. Nate Bryan said in the chat as well. I know he went to Pittsburgh as well, so that makes sense as well. Larry Moon III, Shaun, 5'11", 170 pounds. Offer list is bananas, sir. So he's got Notre Dame, Michigan. He's a 2027 kid, by the way. Just finished up his freshman year. He's got Notre Dame, Michigan, Miami, LSU, USC, Tennessee, Nebraska, Penn State, North Carolina, Kentucky, South Carolina, Maryland, Michigan State, Wisconsin, West Virginia, Syracuse, UCF, Kansas, Pittsburgh, Minnesota. That's just the Power 4 schools that have offered him. Not even counting the G5 schools that have offered him. So big offer list for Larry Moon. Not much smaller for Dakota Gurant, Shaun, who has his offer list was, I remember it. Yeah, here. So he's got Notre Dame, Michigan, Penn State, Auburn, Tennessee, Michigan State, Kentucky, Maryland, Pittsburgh, Purdue, Kansas, Indiana, among several others. So 2 big-time players here, Shaun. I watched film on both these kids. I have a little bit of a breakdown of just some of the early film, okay? Larry Moon, incredibly physical corner for his size, 5'11", 170, who has great change of direction. Again, Brian Driscoll said he thought he was the best defensive back on scene in Notre Dame this past weekend, which is awesome to hear. Dakota Gurant, he announced his offer, Shaun. I believe he worked out as a defensive back, but he announced his offer seemingly as an athlete because he had Mike Brown and he had Mike Mickens tagged, right? And if you watch this kid, I looked it up. He had several pass breakups on defense. He plays defense for Harper Woods, excuse me. But he had 49 catches for 1,100 yards and 15 touchdowns as a freshman in high school. Insane. So I talked, I've been messaging, I should say, with Larry Moon, okay? They made a big impact on him, Shaun. There's no doubt. 2027 kid, big offer list. We'll see how that translates, but it was very complimentary of the staff, was very complimentary of the event. He loved the campus. All stuff checks out there. But Shaun, we got 2027 defensive back talk on the podcast, man. What a world to be in right now. But 2 very talented defensive backs that Notre Dame offered this weekend in the 2027 class.
Yeah. This kid, first of all, I'm going to start with the kid from Harper Woods. That kid. Did I say his name correctly? I hope I did.
Wait, say it again? Gurant? I think it's Gurant. I think it's Gurant.
I think I used L's instead of R's. I'm sorry, Gurant. Harper Woods kid, and that Harper Woods just sound familiar because I talked to his head coach, and his head coach is the father of Jacob Olden, who was a big-time prospect in the 25 class. No, Jake was a 24 kid, I'm sorry, that eventually ended up going elsewhere. So the familiarity with Coach Rod, his relationship that he had with Mike Mickens, how he speaks highly of Mike Mickens. And, also Mike Brown has been recruiting several players at his stops at Wisconsin and Cincinnati. So he's very familiar. So now that comes into play as well with this young man. Harper Woods has always been viewed as one of those schools that's a pipeline to the University of Michigan. Understandable, but just a little background on what this young man coming into Notre Dame, having knowledge of the coaches and spending time with two coaches that his head coach familiar with and has strong relationships with. So in the end, in this recruiting, it could definitely help Notre Dame, those relationships that already exist. But just talking to the young man, like you said, talking to Coach Oden last night, he said he heard the same thing that you put forth about his experience at Notre Dame. And a lot of top players, I don't think I've heard anyone that was there say the way Notre Dame laid things out. There were kids there 2 days before the invasion.
They were? Yeah.
Kids, literally, they were there in South Bend 2 days before the actual camp, enjoying the campus, enjoying the staff, enjoying the other players. You had Deuce and Elijah playing golf, posting it on Instagram. Like, the vibes were just absolutely incredible the entire weekend. Well, he tried to play golf. I
was going to say the Elijah Burst golf swing was not the best in the world I've ever seen. I guess Plexico's not much of a golfer. He hasn't taken Elijah out to golf. I don't know, man. That was a pretty rough swing. Pretty rough. Wasn't the best swing I've ever seen.
Hey, Elijah, no shade from me. We've all been there at the start. We've all been there at the start. I promise you. I've missed the ball completely.
Oh yeah, I'm a pretty decent driver, but otherwise I'm a terrible golfer. So yeah, he needs to work on that golf swing. Luckily for Notre Dame, they got like 1 million golf courses, so he'll be good on golf for a little bit, man. He'll be good on golf for a little bit.
I just wanted to start with him on the end. Yeah. Now, look, this Moon kid.
Yeah,
I believe he was just at Pitt recently.
Yeah. Yep.
Checking them out. Of course, that's the local school. I'm sure Penn State is going to be all over the kid as well. But once again, it just points to elite kids now wanting to camp at Notre Dame. We cannot overlook that, people. Things are changing. 5 stars in 26 and 27. The kids are watching. They're watching who's coming to camp at Notre Dame. And now it's becoming a thing. It's going to be a thing moving into the future to camp at Notre Dame as a big-time prospect. That's what we're looking at. That's vitally important. That is like the Irish invasion is like the starting block of recruiting. It's an advantage that other schools like Georgia and Alabama have had for years. It's a starting block. Try running 100 standing straight up. Try it. Try building momentum just standing straight up rather than being in the starting block. That's been Notre Dame recruiting. That's been Notre Dame recruiting.
Yeah.
And the Irish invasion is the starting block. It is the positioning of your recruiting for not just one class, for 2 classes. To build momentum. And like you said, if you're going to win a race, man, you got to get off to a strong start. And then you got to start, and then you got to have a strong kick. Anybody would tell you that. You got to get off to a clean start, and then you got to have a strong kick at the end. And ladies and gentlemen, that's recruiting. That's recruiting. Strong start and a kick at the end. And the problem now, the strong start, I believe, has been solved, in my opinion, Ryan. I think they've solved the strong start. Now, as a staff, collectively, because we know individuals can do it, but collectively as a staff, finishing is it. And that starts with them finishing on the field in 2024 as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hand in hand.
It matters tremendously. And I would Shaun, I'm taking verbal abuse not verbal. I'm taking keyboard abuse in the chat again, man, for pronunciation. I didn't even pronounce anything wrong. Didn't even pronounce anything wrong yet. But yeah, sure. Keep throwing shade. No mailbag today, by the way, Tommy. So you can take that mailbag question. You can forget it. Let's talk about that later. But yeah, super chats though. Super chats we'll take today. But it was a great analogy, Shaun. Someone said that it was a great analogy, and it was. And as a track guy, I'm a track guy, right? So I appreciate the fast start out of the blocks, strong kick at the finish. I appreciate that analogy as well. Let's talk about some Chicago guys, Shaun, because why not? Okay, there was a couple very talented Chicago players that were on campus this past weekend, or I guess maybe outside of Chicago, one of them. But yeah, let's talk about 2027 Mundelein, Illinois quarterback, Carmel Catholic quarterback Trey Taylor, 6'2", 175 pounds, made his return trip to campus. Shaun came earlier this spring as well, was back at the Irish Invasion to impress. Brian had talked about it in his breakdown again that Trey had a strong day, was one of the top quarterbacks in attendance overall. Trey has a very strong offer list at this point, Shaun, despite playing JV last year, not even starting a varsity game yet. He's got Michigan, Miami, Illinois, Colorado, Maryland, NC State, Vanderbilt as his early Power 4 offers. That's without starting a varsity football game yet for Carmel Catholic, which he is expected to do this year. And so, Shaun, I know you talked to your sources near Trey Taylor, and I believe you talked directly to Trey Taylor as well.
Yeah.
I was chatting a little bit with Trey as well, just texting with him. So quick context, and then I'll let you go into a lot more depth than this. Notre Dame, each of the stops so far, Shaun, has made Trey Taylor know that like he's a priority in the 2027 class, and offer has not been extended. That's mostly because they just want to see him play varsity football, right? Like they just want to see it on the field and see what it looks like. They love what they see in camps. They love his intelligence. They love everything about him. They just want to see some varsity game film, obviously, before extending an offer. But I know you have talked to Trey and get a little bit more insight on that one.
Well, first of all, he was good enough to start for the varsity team. Jason McKee, former Chicago Bear fullback, is the head coach of Carmel Catholic. And I spoke with him leading up to the invasion to ask him about the kid. And he was just talking about the physical for him would be seen. He was like, people just don't understand the leader this kid is at a young age. Like if I had to turn it over to him last year, I had no problem turning it over to him as a true freshman. We just happened to have a senior quarterback that was there when it was bad, because this is the fourth year of Jason McKee's coaching tenure at Carmel. And he said, I just wanted to respect the guy that worked through the trenches and through the tough times, and now that we built the program to experience some success, and give him a chance to earn a D1 scholarship, which he was able to do. And in the MAC. So that just talked about and that talks about this bodes well. Let me tell you why this bodes well. And this goes to something Trey told me when I spoke to him after the invasion. He said, man, I was just standing there and I'm throwing the pill and I'm kicking it with Deuce, Noah, and CJ's watching. And he said, I just lived in the moment. He was like, it was one of the coolest moments I've ever experienced in my life. He's already very comfortable in that room without being in that room. That's what I want to point out. Like, so if he is a kid that eventually ends up matriculating to Notre Dame, you already see that he loves the environment and the camaraderie of that room that exists between those guys, right? And you keep recruiting 5-star, top-notch quarterbacks. At some point, ego starts to come into the picture, Double R. Like, because everybody wants to play, right? Everyone's parents want them to play, and that's kind of where do they get to now? They have CJ, they have Deuce, they have Noah. Like, all three of those guys want to play. Don't get it twisted. So now do you go get a kid that might not be top 50, but he's top 100? But he has a comfort level and understands and can kind of balance things out. Not to say that he isn't good, but he's not 6'4", 215. And this is a slightly built man. a young man, like you said, Notre Dame just wants to see him play varsity. Like that's it.
Which is very understandable, Shaun, because like let's be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah,
There are some kids that look great in camps, but aren't as good on the fields. I mean, like
hmm
that happens, right? So I don't blame Notre Dame for wanting to just see the game day evidence. Like I don't blame them at all because you know
no,
what's going to happen, Shaun, and I guarantee this happens. I think Notre Dame will be a major player for Trey Taylor if he plays really well and they offer him sometime during
yeah,
the season. It's not like Trey
yeah.
Taylor's like, I'm committing next month. Like it's gonna be a
I,
process, man. Like
hey,
oh
Double R.
Shaun, don't do that.
The
Don't do
young
that.
man, the young man and his family are very high on Notre Dame. I'll leave it at that.
I feel that, bro. I feel
I'll
that.
leave it
That's what
at
I'm saying.
that.
Yeah.
I'll leave it at that. The offer would have a really big impact. I'll leave it at that. The
That's fair.
offer would have a really big impact for the young man and his family. It would. It
Yeah.
would. So, and that's not trying to be hyperbolic. That is what I've heard, and the relationship is there. Um, his father is actually a wide receiver coach
At Carmel Catholic.
At Carmel Catholic.
Right.
So Notre Dame has been talking not only to one of his coaches, but to his dad. So there's a clear connection, understanding, and I think he shocked everybody. This is the last thing I'll say. I think a lot of people looked at him, looked at his film, his junior varsity film, and felt like they had already pegged him for the type of quarterback he was going to be.
Sure.
And then they saw him throw and they were like, oh, okay.
It's always a good surprise when you're like,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Cool. We're there. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. And this says something else. When the quarterback's on the roster and the committed guys watching say, hey, yeah, come throw with us. Come on over here and throw with us.
Talking about 2027 quarterback Trey Taylor, by the way, for people that are popping in, Illinois quarterback. Someone just asked. So, well, Shaun, again, Notre Dame has been very open with him that they're incredibly high on him. And when that offers does come, I think that Notre Dame will be a tough team to beat. Obviously, it's obviously not a foregone conclusion, but Notre Dame will be a massive player when that does happen. There's no doubt about it. Shaun, stupid question, because someone's going to make fun of me for this, even though I have never lived in the city of Chicago. So, like, how would I know this? Mundelein, is that a suburb of Chicago? Is that near Chicago at all?
Mundelein is, everything is near Chicago. Everything west, north, south, 30-40-minute drive.
Well, let me ask you a question though. Can someone that lives in Mundelein claim that they are a Chicago guy or no? Can that be claimed?
Depends on who it is. It depends on. I give grace, Double R.
Yeah.
Right? Because the majority of people that end up in the suburbs began, or their roots in their family began in the city. So I give grace, right? Of course, you want to give your child a better life, better opportunity, a job out in the suburb. You don't want to commute, you move. But most people, their family, if you trace the roots of their family, their roots trace back to the city of Chicago. So I give grace like that. You have other people that are like, dude, Mundelein is not Chicago. Like, stop.
And that's where my question came from.
Mundelein is not Chicago. So I'm sure I'll have to talk to his dad more in depth, right? Because, I'm sure his dad had Chicago roots. And then he's grandfathered in, right? He's fathered in. Like, yeah, you're a Chicago kid. Yeah.
Fair. All right. Well, second guy, Shaun, there's no debate if this kid is from Chicago because he goes to school literally in Chicago. So this one's an easier one. Okay. 2027 Chicago, Illinois, Morgan Park athlete, Nasir Rankin, who we talked about before Irish Invasion, big time basketball player that has transferred to Morgan Park, legitimate basketball player who could play at a very high level in the next level. Did not get offered by Notre Dame this weekend, Shaun, but I know it sounds like he was very impressive. Brian spoke very highly of him. What can you tell us about Nasir Rankin's weekend at Notre Dame?
Let me tell you something, man. Nasir Rankin is a very athletic, raw athlete. I mean, yeah, he's athletic. He's a very raw football athlete. Literally just finished up EYBL basketball spring sessions, and now he's getting ready to go back out on the road for basketball. Spoke to him before the invasion, spoke to him last night. He said, Shaun, man, I was so nervous. And he was like, I hope they couldn't tell. He was like, this was my first camp. Think about that. He's never been to a football camp, ever. And his first football camp was at the University of Notre Dame in front of Marcus Freeman. He's like, yo, I was nervous as hell. I was nervous as hell. And he said, once we got through the first couple of drills, he was like, I was cool, you know. But I'm just going to sum it up like this. Notre Dame loved what they saw. I think a lot of people out there love from the young man. He's already a 4-star. And this is with him being raw and really not having a lot of film. The school that he went to, which is Whitney Young, is a program under Dan Finger, head coach Dan Finger, who has connections. His family has connections as alums to Notre Dame. So he's been aware of Notre Dame his entire time. And Whitney Young is a very prestigious academic institution in the city of Chicago. So this is a smart kid. This is a smart kid. But transferring to Morgan Park gives him the best of both worlds as a basketball player and as a football player, because the Morgan Park football program has been consistently better than Whitney Young's program over the last decade. So it gives him an opportunity to really grow as a football player, and that's why he made the move and transferred to Morgan Park recently. And that's what you saw yesterday. You saw a raw athlete. The one thing that he says he has to work on is he was like, yo, I've never run a 40 before. He's a basketball player, Double R. He's a basketball player that just started playing football.
He just runs suicides, man. He doesn't run 40 times yet. Yep,
He's never run a 40, right? So he's like, I have to work on my speed a little bit. He's like, yo, but as far as everybody saw, he's explosive. Man, in and out of breaks, phenomenal. Phenomenal. He's a slot guy. That's what he is. He's going to be a slot, jet sweep, take the top off the defense type of guy. That's who he is. And under the guidance of Chris James and his staff, the staff at Morgan Park, most of them have played D1 football. That's the difference. Dan Finger is head coach, but Dan Finger played D3 football. And that's not to say he doesn't know the game. Chris James was a defensive back for the University of Illinois. That's his head coach. And the rest of his coaching staff, they all played D1 football. So it's just more resources, elevated coaching, and he hopes, knowing, fully aware, Notre Dame was very honest with him. Mike Brown did not. Mike Brown, I think Gino Gaduli and Mike Brown have been the main contacts for the young man with his dad and also Chris James. And they spoke to both on the side. Nasir said he didn't speak to any Notre Dame coaches directly. He didn't talk to anyone directly, but all the communication came through his coach and has been through his dad. So Notre Dame has been up front. They're very interested in the young man, but just like Trey Taylor, but for different reasons. We need to see film and, see that speed. We want to see that speed show up. And so he knows what he needs to work on, and he's committed to that. But another really good showing by Nasir Rankin, his first time in any type of camp, fighting through the nerves and just going out there and performing. And he got a shout out in my conversation with Trey Taylor. Trey gave him a shout out. Trey was like,
nice.
Trey was like, yo, Nasir did his thing. He balled. He was like, Morgan Park.
I'm sure they know each other, right?
Oh,
I'm sure they know each other. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chicago, I tell you all the time from an athletic standpoint, Chicago is a big city, but it's a very small community when it comes to sports. Everybody knows everyone.
It's funny. Well, I'm interested to see where things go in this year ranking, because we said this jokingly before the Irish invasion, Shaun, but I'm not totally joking about it. I'm sure Coach Shrewsbury is in the back of Marcus Freeman's ear, like, "Hey, man, dual sport kid, we got something here. Like, figure it out, right?"
6'1", 6'2" guard that can 37-inch vert. Yeah, I think
they got like a 5'9" guard right now. That's pretty good. So imagine that with a 6'1" guy,
Absolutely.
So I'm very interested to see where things go with Nasir Rankin. Strong showing at the Irish invasion. We'll see if things progress moving forward. Another guy, Shaun, that we have some knowledge of, and it's mostly because of the school he comes from, Merrillville, Indiana, Andrean High School has another prospect, this time in the 2026 class. Obviously, we talked about Drake Bowen in the 2023
Mm-hmm.
recruiting class. Now Notre Dame is recruiting Benjamin Novak, offensive lineman, listed at 6'7", 300 pounds. Smaller offensive line group this year, Shaun. I mean, we talked about like Carter Scruggs and Sullivan Garvin was another guy that I know Notre Dame's keeping tabs on, obviously. Benjamin Novak, who is, again, 6'7", 300 pounds, projects as a guard on the next level, plays a little bit of tackle at Andrean, but he plays mostly at guard for Andrean. Big kid, Shaun. Someone asked me for a comp to him. I view him similarly to how I viewed Sullivan Absher, but not quite as explosive as Sullivan. Like, I thought Sullivan was a little bit more explosive based upon what I saw of him on film coming out of high school, but same big body, physical, can really displace defenders. Like, this is a physically well put together kid for a sophomore in high school, man, because he posted a couple pictures after the invasion. That's a massively put together kid for as young as he is, man. Like Joe Rudolph's not a small guy. He's not a big guy either, but like he dwarfed Coach Rudolph, like absolutely dwarfed him, right? So kind of the latest with this one, Shaun. Novak had told me that, first and foremost, loves Coach Rudolph, loves him, talked about him being able to work with him, being able to just kind of to really pick his brain a little bit and really develop a deeper understanding to play offensive line position. He talked about, some of the stuff he learned at camp. He's going to take it into the season and showcase what he's been learning on the next level. He also told me that they're planning to check in about a couple weeks span here to talk about, next steps of potentially getting an offer. That's kind of like the next step for him. But it's kind of in a similar boat as far as Notre Dame, I think, really wants to see the junior film in the step he takes, because I think it sounds like they liked his sophomore film. They liked him in person, but now they just kind of want to see if he takes that ascension as a junior to being that type of guy, because he has a expanding offer list. He's got like Louisville and a couple other Power 4 schools that have offered so far. But I think this is a little bit of a wait and see just how he continues to develop this offseason into his junior year, Shaun, because the size is there, obviously, right? The pedigree's there, but it's now about taking the next steps. So some positive moves with Benjamin Novak this weekend. But I think this is a guy that Notre Dame's going to continue to evaluate to see if he's a guy that 2026 offer is, if that potential offer list if that offer does come. Because I'll say this, Shaun, if an offer does come, and it shouldn't be a major surprise for an Indiana native, right? But Notre Dame would be the team to beat for Novak. Like, it just flat out would be the team to beat for Novak. Notre Dame, I think, knows that, so they want to make sure that this is a kid that they really love. I think they like him now, but I think they want to see how the progression happens over the next few weeks, couple months.
Once again, we're talking about a program that might become a nice into Notre Dame, right? Drake Bowen, we already know from Andrean. Pat Clax was a receiver that they also looked at, a former teammate of Drake Bowen.
He ended up somewhere decent, right? Pat Clax was a Cal or something like that, right? I thought.
Yes.
I thought I saw it. I thought it was Cal. I could be wrong. Because I kind of like Pat Clax a little bit, man. Like, Notre Dame didn't make a move with him, but he was a pretty good receiver for Andrean, man.
It's very similar because I think at an earlier stage, I think
Buffalo.
they jumped
He's going to
on
Buffalo. I was completely wrong.
Pat Clack, I guess is apples to orange in as far as timetable, but it's pretty much the same message with Narcier Rankin. Like, we need to see the speed improvement. And obviously they went the other route and other options. But with this kid, I think we talked about it when we previewed the invasion. Like, this kid to be that big. I'm amazed that kids are like naturally this big, but they're workout warriors, bro. And we talked about that tradition. Maybe like that is the legacy of Drake Bowen and what he left at Andrean. Like,
possible. Yeah.
Workout warriors. And to see this kid in his videos and to look at his film and what he can be, I wouldn't mind jumping on this kid early. I would not mind if Notre Dame said, okay, we really like him. But Coach Rudolph said, yeah, this is the kid we want. Because we were talking about the specifics of this class, I think this class might be that interior class more so than the tackles in the 25 class. It's going to be interesting to see how they build this offensive line. Do they go
Small
big with
board right
guys?
now. Super
Yeah,
small board right
big.
now.
They could go big guys that play tackle that have the ability to bump inside to answer the question, or do they specifically get inside guys? I'm very interested in seeing how this plays out and how the development of this class plays out in the offensive line. Yeah.
Yep. And if they make a move with Novak, I believe that Notre Dame would be the obvious team to beat. I've already mentioned that, but just kind of want to reiterate that again. Talking about 2026 offensive lineman out of Merrillville, Indiana, Andrean, or also the school of current Notre Dame linebacker Drake Bowen. So we'll see if things progress with that potential fits. We shall see. Last note I had, Shaun, and then we're going to talk about a preferred walk-on offer that went out, which I like. Look, we'll talk about that, man. I think that I don't think that we're going to ever, as a media publication, because hey, preferred walk-ons aren't going to sell views all the time, right? But I don't think that we talk enough about how Notre Dame has upgraded the preferred walk-on situation under Marcus Freeman and under Chad Bowden. And I think that they have a chance to add another really good one in 2025, which we'll talk about. But I wanted to do a quick note here on Peter Bork, Shaun, who is a quarterback out of 2027 class, Marion, Massachusetts, Tabor Academy. We're going to read these, Shaun. So kid that's going to be a sophomore this year, okay? 2027 kid, okay? I did an interview with him. He gave me also some insight into his workout from Sunday, okay? So a kid that's going to be a sophomore, weighed in 6'4", 195 pounds. We're talking about a quarterback, by the way. 6'4", 195. He had a 4'8", 240 and a 9'7" broad jump, Shaun. That's pretty dang good for a kid his age, man. So this is a pretty athletic kid. He actually told me he didn't feel like he threw the ball. He felt like he didn't have his best day, but was still happy with how he competed, obviously. Was happy with how he tested. Another young man that Coach Gaduli and Marcus Freeman are keeping a close eye on, because basically what they had said was, because I talked to another quarterback too that was there, it doesn't sound like they're going to offer any 2027 quarterbacks until the season, right? That's kind of what it sounds like, and that kind of backs up what Trey Taylor said as far as needing to see some game film. I think that they want to see some sophomore film before they offer any of these quarterbacks. But just keep an eye on Peter Bork. I think that he's a very interesting, talented quarterback. He's making the move because he had played at Catholic Memorial as a freshman, so he's moving over now to Tabor Academy as a sophomore, which I know is a really good program out there in the state of Massachusetts. So just interesting to see what they're able to do with Peter Bork this year. Very interesting football player. Now, Shaun, let's get into preferred walk-on 2025 class. We're going to spend some time with this, man, because we need to talk about it, Shaun. Literally, Jordan Faison ended the 2023 season as potentially Notre Dame's best receiver as far as how he was playing. Former walk-on. Luke Talich earned a scholarship and was a special team stalwart as a freshman, and now is in contention to play a lot as a safety in 2024. Preferred walk-on, Notre Dame has done a great job. Anthony Rizak this past year in 2024, the talented quarterback, brother of Teddy, who ran 4.49 at a camp as a quarterback and was a state championship quarterback back-to-back years, right? So Notre Dame has upped their game on the side of the preferred walk-on. And it matters, dude. And Notre Dame's showing that it matters because literally they've had a lot of success just in the first couple years under Marcus Freeman with preferred walk-ons. They offered a preferred walk-on opportunity to 2025. I have no idea how to pronounce the first name. Osio is how I'm going to pronounce it, okay? Minnesota people, get in the chat. Tell me how much of an idiot I am. I don't care, okay? Maple Grove linebacker. I'm just going to say Maple Grove in the state of Minnesota, okay? Jacob Warbanek, who is a 6'3", 215-pound linebacker, Shaun. He actually has, because he, as a junior, 79 total tackles for his team, 7 tackles for loss, forced fumble, was a very good player. And Shaun, he's earned a couple scholarship offers this offseason, including Kansas State. He has a not a preferred walk-on opportunity. He has a scholarship from Kansas State, which again is a pretty good program, right? So Notre Dame, though, coming out this weekend, he flat out told me in an interview that's already up at boards.irishbreakdown.com, or actually not even at boards, just at irishbreakdown.com, Shaun. He said, Notre Dame's my top spot. Like just flat out. Over scholarships he has, a preferred walk-on opportunity is his top option in his opinion right now. So Notre Dame has upped their preferred walk-on game, Shaun. I like this kid's film. I think it's pretty good. Like he's a borderline offerable kid in my opinion. But if they're able to get a Jacob Warbenak, that is just attention to detail in the recruiting sphere of Marcus Freeman. Chad Bowden, let's identify not just scholarship kids, but preferred walk-on kids to make our team better. This could be the next Jordan Faison. Maybe. This could be the next Luke Talich. Maybe. Maybe not. But regardless, they are attracting talent on all levels of recruiting, man. And I really do like this preferred walk-on to Jacob Warbenak because he's a kid that is very high on Notre Dame, to say the least, right now.
This PWO thing is becoming like the trendy thing to do, especially at Notre Dame. Like, I can't even think about it, man. I'm trying to think. How would you assess the risk? Is there anything in a draft standpoint that you can like directly connect this to? What would it be like? Would it be like a kid being one of the top free agents after the draft, undrafted free agents, and choosing a certain team over the highest bidder or something like that, like taking a shot based upon the culture,
like a priority free agent, a guy that like you probably had a borderline draftable grade on, maybe not quite, but he's still a priority for you because you still think he can come in and compete and maybe contribute to a team potentially down the road, right? So yeah, priority free agent, like that type of situation. I think that's very similar, Shaun, because like, look, we have to talk about this in a business sense a little bit, right? You only have so many scholarships, only have so many. So there is an investment going into these kids, right? There is an investment. Yes, a part of the opportunity is NIL backing and obviously a great education and a great, alumni network and all those types of things. That's all part of the deal. But for a scholarship to be laid out, a team is still saying we are investing in you. I don't want to call it a gamble because I don't want to say kids are gambles, but we are putting our neck out and saying you're a kid that can come in and help us. We're putting our future not on the line. It's a bad terminology, but they are investing in a young man. For a preferred walk-on, you're still investing, but it's like the Tyler Buckner conversation we have, right? If Tyler Buckner comes in and he does really well as a wide receiver and eventually earns a scholarship back and does all that type of thing, that's great. But there's still a risk involved with giving a scholarship versus not getting a scholarship. But I think finding talent, however you can find it, like a Jacob Warbenak, that's how great programs are built. Nebraska, Shaun, when Nebraska was in their heyday, right? The black shirts, they used to get crazy preferred walk-on numbers, dude. Crazy. Because they wanted to be a part of it, man. They wanted to be part of it. And I think that if you're a great scouting staff, you're a great recruiting staff, you're a great coaching staff, you're trying to find as much talent in every different way. Transfer portal, regular recruiting, preferred walk-ons. You got to happen in all avenues. And I think that this is another preferred walk-on move, obviously.
Yeah, I agree. And I like it, right? I like it because you build from the ground up. Ground leads to depth. That ground leads to intangibles that become a part of the program that yields for years to come. And I think that's what Notre Dame is doing. And I think they're being very smart and making sure they shore up that part of the program, their PWO part of the program. You go get the best of the best. And to be able to sell to kids that might have group of four, a group of five scholarship, and they're willing to pass that up at Notre Dame. I'm gonna be honest, man. I understand where these young men are. Just strictly from the opportunity to be a student at Notre Dame and to get a degree from Notre Dame. Yeah, I would probably turn down that scholarship myself. I would. I flat out would. Of course, that's the way I think. I don't know if all young men think like that, but Man, look, you mean to tell me I'm gonna get a free opportunity?
Well, Shaun, I've always thought about the parents, right? Like I was actually talking to Caitlin about this yesterday because I was talking about just like Jacob Warbenak and having a
Hmm.
couple opportunities or whatever. And I thought back to Luke Talich because also Jordan Faison had a football scholarship to Iowa if he wanted to go, right? But Luke
Yeah.
had Utah, Oregon State, Washington State. Like he had multiple opportunities to play at the time, Power 5 football, now Power
Hmm.
4 football. And he opted to take Notre Dame. And I was thinking back to like the Talich family where it's like, that's a tough conversation to tell your dad, like, hey, or and your mom, like, hey, I know that those schools are going to pay for everything, but like, I just want to go to Notre Dame and pay X amount a
But see,
year. you know?
this is where your words come back to bite you, right?
Yeah,
I don't maybe I know I told my daughter from the time she was born, I'll support whatever it is you want to do.
sure,
Don't worry about it. We're gonna provide, but man, chase your dreams.
sure.
Chase your dreams, and we're gonna find a way to make sure that we provide. That's what we tell our kids. And then the moment comes where they want to chase their dream, it's like let's put up a shut up time. So yeah, it's probably a tough conversation to have, but at the same time, yo, like I said, when I say an opportunity to get something for free,
Yeah,
I don't think these young men believe they're going to stay preferred walk-ons their entire time. I believe
sure.
these kids think they're going to earn scholarships.
It's a great note. It's a great note because I remember talking to Luke specifically about this, right? Because Jordan's a little bit of a unique one because he was a scholarship player for another
Yeah,
sport, but
for
it's
another
obviously it's
sport.
a different level as far as
Yeah,
football versus lacrosse, that type of thing. I remember talking about a Luke, man, and Luke had that worker mentality, Shaun, where he was like, I'm gonna earn a scholarship quick, like
yeah.
just flat out. And he did after his first year, he had a scholarship, right?
There you
So
go.
yeah, you have to have that in you, I think, right? Like Jacob Warbenak, if he does pick Notre Dame, he's not thinking in his mind, next 5 years, 4 or 5 years, I'm just going to pay Notre Dame tuition every single year, and it's going to be okay. It's like in his back of his mind, he's got to be thinking, I'm going to work my butt off, and maybe in a year or two, I'm going to earn a scholarship. Like that's got
Yeah,
to be in your mind, right? Like, because
absolutely.
what's the preferred walk on thing, Shaun? Literally in a vacuum, it's betting on yourself, right? You're
Yes,
betting on yourself
yes.
ultimately when you have other opportunities. So, yeah, I think that's what Jacob potentially could do. Again, hasn't committed to Notre Dame, hasn't said that's where he's going, but like based on my conversation and just other information, I think that Notre Dame could be very hard to beat, even though it is a preferred walk-on opportunity potentially.
Look, man, the Notre Dame coaches are telling me I'm good enough to play there.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? It just for business purposes, it has to be this way. But we believe you're good enough to play here. You darn right. I think I'm going to earn a scholarship. That's all I need to hear. Man, you think? Hey, let's go. Shoot up. Let's. I want all the smoke. Bring it. Luke Talent is a perfect example of that. Yeah, you darn right. I believe in myself, and you believe in me too.
Right.
Let's go get it.
Hats off to all the preferred walk-ons, right? And the JD Bertrand situation was unique. He wasn't so like there was like a walk-on status, Shaun, but then the scholarship got freed up, so he was never
Right.
technically a preferred walk-on.
A
But like,
walk
yeah,
on.
there was a
Yeah.
little bit of intrigue there, I guess, to say the least. But yeah, not technically, not technically. He was never at Notre Dame as a preferred walk-on. He was always a scholarship player. So yeah, a little bit of a misnomer there. But Shaun, that's Irish Invasion, man. We're not done though. We're going to talk 2025 wide receiver recruiting because there's been a couple official visits that have been set up to campus here. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk early 2026. I don't know, dreams. We're going to make it called a wish list, right? Some wide
Okay.
receiver conversation will be involved in there because Notre Dame has their quarterback in 2026. So now we can set sights on maybe a wide receiver or two that Notre Dame might like, right? Maybe it's just some players that I think Notre Dame is pretty high on right now. So we're going to keep it more realistic in the 2026 conversation. But before we get to 2025 wide receivers, guys, please hit the like button. I hope you enjoyed this section of the podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell on YouTube. If you can, also on your favorite podcast platform. Even if you're not listening to us on your podcast platform or you listen to us on YouTube, go to your favorite podcast platform, leave a 5-star review. Tell them you love Ryan, you love Shaun, you love the recruiting hour. That's how the channel continues to grow. We would very, very much Appreciate it, my friends. Thank you. And go over to boards.irishbreakdown.com. We've had a lot of recruiting intel over the last few days. We've had a lot of team intel over the last few days. It's not stopping here. We're getting into June now, when June is official visitor weekends every single week, some during the week as well. So we'll have continued information there. Make sure, though, follow everything we're doing at irishbreakdown.com. We're going to get to 2025 wide receiver recruiting next here on the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Shaun, wide receiver recruiting in 2025 has taken another turn, my friends. Another turn. Because why? We had what we thought was probably a more in-depth understanding of the board. And I think that we still do. But there's 2 new names on the board, Shaun, that were offered this past week, Notre Dame. And funny enough, both players have set up visits to Notre Dame very, very quickly. Okay. So we're going to talk about both of these recent offers from Notre Dame and their respective visits that they will be taking to Notre Dame, the official visits, and just kind of early thoughts on them, early standings Notre Dame has, and where we think that this whole thing could be trending a little bit, right? So we're going to talk about all that here, Shaun. I want to start us out with a local wide receiver, Fishers, Indiana High School. And we're talking 2025, so I don't want to keep saying 2025 wide receiver. These are both 2025 wide receivers. Fishers, Indiana High School wide receiver, Shaun, John Anthony Hall. Okay, John Anthony Hall, listed at 6'1", 170 pounds, listed by 247 Sports as the number 52 overall player in the class and number 8 wide receiver in the class, has offers from Indiana, Northwestern, Notre Dame, Purdue, Stanford, Boston College, Michigan, Michigan State, Louisville, Iowa, Minnesota, Vanderbilt, among several others, Shaun. So a good offer list. Not an elite offer list, but a good offer list, okay? Very interesting situation. So as of now, and I reported on this after talking to John Anthony, June 11th through the 13th, Shaun, he'll be taking an official visit to Notre Dame. He also has official visits set up to Stanford on June 6th to the 8th. He also has official to Purdue, June 14th to the 16th, and Indiana, June 21st to the 23rd. So local touch to his recruitment, obviously, outside of Stanford, but otherwise, we're talking about 3 Indiana schools that are recruiting him at the highest level, it does seem. Also, Shaun, a big basketball player for Fishers as well. There was legitimate basketball interest with this young man as well. Seems he is setting his sight on football, Shaun, and he had a really nice season in 2023. He had 69 receptions for over 1,000 yards, 1,055 yards, 6 touchdowns. That's 15.3 yards per reception. Also averaged 42.1 yards per kickoff return as well. So a pretty dynamic player with the ball in his hands. He has also run track, and he's a good track athlete as well, over a 23-foot long jumper, Shaun. So very intriguing athlete, man. Let's open up the conversation. I don't know why he hasn't been offered up at this point. The only reason I can find is that Notre Dame just valued some wide receivers ahead of him. And I think that they had a thought, and it's just me speculating, I haven't been told this, that this is a kid that they could come to a little bit later if they chose to go that route, right? Because what I think is happened here, Shaun, is that this kid, high academic kid, by the way, 3.8 GPA, he has a official visit to Stanford. He's got a Northwestern offer. Like, he's a very high academic kid, talented dude as well. And I think that there's a possibility that he ends up in the class moving forward. Again, this is speculation on my parts, but over the next couple weeks is going to be important. The conversations, the relationship that he's building, and he's going to be on campus again, June 11th through the 13th. Interesting addition to the board, Shaun, because good offer list has a very high ranking by one service. Another service has him as a 4-star, and he's a 3-star and 2 others. So his recruiting ranking is a little bit all over the place. But I don't know how much you've watched him yet, Shaun. I like John Anthony Hall, actually. I expected not to like him because it's a late offer and he's an in-state kid. I'm just kind of in the back of my mind, like, why the heck haven't you offered him if he's that good, right? But I watched him and I kind of like him, man. I kind of like him. I don't know.
Yeah, I actually looked at their schedule last year and saw that they played a couple of Illinois schools. And so, you know me, I love my conversations and the connections I have with the coaches, but the conversations that are going to be raw and probably unfiltered are the conversations with actual high school players that play against these guys. Because you can hear a kid, man, there's someone on the D line, I won't say who, that Notre Dame is going after, loves, has offered in the 26 class. And then you ask recruiting analysts, you ask people watching film, they're like, oh, I like the kid. And I went to the people that played against him, they were like, he's all right. He's nothing special. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I made a call about John Anthony, and it was like, guys were like, yo, that dude is faster than he looks.
He
Like,
kind of lulls you to sleep a little bit.
yeah, that was
an
that
interesting.
was the consensus too.
Yeah.
Like, this kid is faster. He's faster than he looks. So you look at the offers, you know he's smart. The Stanford offer stands out because I think they have a really good head coach / play call.
Yep.
Really good eye for talent as well inside his scheme. So when you see him go after kids, you see him go after a quarterback, and you see him going after a wide receiver, more than likely they could play at Notre Dame.
Sure.
And probably be really good at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So, you talk about the Northwestern and Stanford offers. That's, a lot of people say, oh, man, no. Like, in a vacuum, this kid could be successful at Notre Dame, especially with the level of quarterbacks that are coming to Notre Dame. Because he has talent, he has tools. The greater deal is going to be development. We get to see whether or not Mike Brown can develop that position. But for them, the larger question, and then I'll let you kind of grab it and take it the rest of the way. The larger question is the way things have played out. A lot of people can say, is this a panic move? But it goes back to what you said. Like, Notre Dame knows what they have coming in official visits in June. Notre Dame knows where they truly sit with each of those guys on the wide receiver board. And Notre Dame is acting no different than Alabama and Georgia and top programs have acted coming in late on kids that they've known about for years. Like, look, all right, let's get them in for the official visit. Let's see what's really good. And then we'll see how things play out. But,
right.
To the larger question, it's a huge month. It's a huge month. We know about the transition Mike Brown had. No, everybody knows about that, right?
Yep.
Didn't get off to the best start. I mean, he was behind the 8 ball in a lot of different areas, right? Trying to reestablish relationships with guys that were on the board, trying to add guys to the board, get them to Notre Dame, to get them acclimated and on visits and seeing everything. And it was kind of sped up. But at the end of the day, he has some talented young men coming in for official visits in the month of June. Can he close? Can you close? Close the deal. I think he's going to close on at least 2. And if numbers wise, if they want someone else, in addition, like this young man with his talent, I mean, you can't be sad or upset with that. This is a kid that has a chance. He has a chance. Like you said, 3-star on one service, 4-star on another service. You watch his film, what do you see? Because I don't care about, like I said, I talk to the people that play against him, that coach against him, his coaches, and then I lean on you and Brian and the people I trust, and I'm good with that.
So Shaun, like, my thoughts when I watched him was, I don't think he's number 52 player in the country, like 247 has, right? But I definitely don't think he's a 3-star either. Like, I like John Anthony Hall. And I would say this, someone made an interesting comparison to Kevin Stepherson on the board, which, like, because he kind of, the one thing about Kevin Stepherson, Shaun, is like Kevin Stepherson could run, but he kind of lulls you to sleep with his running style a little bit, right? Because he always just looks so relaxed running, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's by me. Like, that's not good, right? That's not a good situation. I probably should have opened up this conversation with this. Notre Dame, now that Shaun Terry is not a part of the class, by the way, that was fun, by the
Wait a
way.
minute.
And
Can we
yeah,
be honest? Can we be honest?
about
Can we be
what, man?
honest? Can we be
About
honest?
what?
No, let's see. Dude, let's be honest.
Go
Let's go
Be
ahead.
honest.
Okay.
Go ahead, be honest.
Ryan, double R,
Yes.
that decommitment wasn't a shock to us.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't a shock. Yeah.
We knew that was coming from both sides, right?
Yeah.
Without saying what need it doesn't need to be said, but
it's on the message board.
yes,
Yeah, it's on.
we knew. We knew. Maybe everybody else is just finding out, but it's like, we knew why other people were being added to the board.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. Well, and Shaun, but now that Shaun Terry's not a part of the class, some people would say, right, what somebody said, some people would ask, I mean, is Notre Dame just going to take 2 wide receivers and end it at 4? There is a possibility Notre Dame still goes to 5 here, Shaun. Like I'll put it this way.
I think they should.
So if they like John Anthony Hall, and let's say John Anthony Hall ends up in the class potentially, right? I believe that they would still go after Dylan, Hines, Derek Meadows, and the best 2, like, because like transparency, right? I don't think Derek Meadows is going to go to Notre Dame. Just don't, right? But like, let's say if you take a John Anthony Hall, I believe that they would also still take Hines. I think that they would still take Dylan Robinson. Like, I don't think it's a 2 spots out of 4 players type of situation. I think there's 3 spots potentially open still at wide receiver in 2025. And I'm also here to say if you get Hines, Dylan Robinson, and John Anthony Hall, I'm cool, man. I'm cool. I'm not going to bash it as much. I'm not, right? If you miss, though, that's where it's like, oh, you missed. Like, this is a bad class at that point, right? It's a below average class. I think it has a chance to still be a good class. You need to hit down the road, though, down the stretch, I should say, of this recruiting class. But all that being said, Shaun, I don't think John Anthony Hall is the number 52 player in the country. I don't think he's a 3-star. I like him, though. I truly do. I like the track numbers that he has because I think that kind of verifies the explosiveness that I do see on film. I like the film for the nuance because I'll say this, and this is a very actually, I don't even think Brian disagrees with that much, but it might be a controversial conversation for some people. I think John Anthony Hall would be pretty comfortably, for me, the best receiver in the class if he committed today. Comfortably. And I don't think that's a high bar because you only have 2 commits in the class, and we know how most of us feel about
You're
one
just basing it. You're basing that upon film production.
Yeah.
All
of it involves.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
I think John Anthony. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying. No. Because I'll just use the example of Elijah Burris, right? That's a lot we like about Elijah Burris, but what puzzles us is where's the production, right? That's what we want to see. Where's the production, right?
Absolutely.
And so with John Anthony Hall, like you said, like we don't know, everything's in a vacuum, right? You have to dig. This is why you dig in. This is why you find out. Okay, he had 61 receptions, but was he the number 1? Because if he had 61 receptions as the number 2 with 6 touchdowns, it's like, oh, he wasn't the primary target and put up those numbers. Now the narrative is totally different.
Yep.
Narrative is totally different. So I think for me, those are the things, well, Elijah Burris, we gave him a lot of grace because we knew he was coming back from injury. Right? He was coming back from injury, came to the season, like, okay, cool. But you still like certain things you see on film. You like the short area quickness. You like the route running. You like, I can see what Mike Brown might see in this kid, right? And now you hear things about him that are very favorable over the camp circuit, right? And you see the touchdown he caught from Deuce yesterday. It's like, okay, all right. Now we want to see this come fall. Like, let's see this. Let's see it match up with the production. And so those are the nuances of wide receiver recruiting, right? It's just to look at numbers and then just to look at everything has to be compiled together to give a true picture of a young man. And a lot of times when we're just looking at the rankings and judging a young man, or we just look at the film and judge the young man, if you're not compiling everything and doing your research and finding out, what was expected of him. Did he exceed his expectations? Like I said, you go look at this young man and what he was able to do. I saw someone in the chat talk about, man, I don't care about competition, dude. Me personally, dude. If you're a dude, you're a dude.
We saw it over
Yeah,
1,000 yards last year. I mean, we're not gonna
yeah,
act like he didn't have any production, right?
you're a dude. You're a dude. You know what I mean? Big time players come from Catholic schools all over the nation that play like ridiculously undersized teams in their conference and don't
Right.
see competition until they get to the state playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hello, Loyola Academy in Chicago. Like
Is that shade? Is
100,
that shade right there?
yeah, that's 100 kids on their roster. And then they'll play Mount Carmel at the end of the year, right before the playoffs every year. Everyone else, they're much better than. But then they'll play Mount Carmel, the one tough game right before the playoffs. And it's like, man, come on.
So John Anthony Hall, Shaun, visiting June 11th through the 13th. Okay, he'll be there the same time as Dylan Robinson, by the way, which I thought was just very interesting. That's just interesting, which is something to watch for, right? So Derek Meadows will take his official visit. Also, Tanuk Hines will be taking his official visit later that next weekend as well. So that's going to be a busy couple weeks. But this isn't the only official visitor that was set up, Shaun. Late last night, don't like to toot my horn too much, but I think I was the first person that had this information. Just want to put that out into the universe for a second. Okay. I think I was the first one to put it out there. But 2025, I said 2025 again, even though I led this conversation by saying I'm not saying 2025 anymore because we're talking about 2025 wide receiver recruiting. But 2025, Rock Hill, South Carolina, high school, wide receiver, Malik Clark, Shaun, listed between 6'1" and 6'2" and 185 pounds, somewhere in that ballpark. Okay. 10.55 100-meter kid as well as a junior, so kid can run pretty well. He had 800 yards and 46 receptions and 9 touchdowns this past year for Rock Hill, so a pretty good productive season. Rated as number 209 overall player in the class and number 22 wide receiver by 247 Sports. Also a 4-star on the 247 composite ranking. Top 5 player from the state of South Carolina. Shaun, healthy offer list here, sir. Healthy offer list. He's going to be visiting Notre Dame June 18th through the 20th is when Malik Clark will be visiting Notre Dame for the first time. He also has official visits already set up too. He actually just came off of one. He was in South Carolina the last couple of days. He was at South Carolina. He has an official visit to North Carolina June 7th through the 9th. He has a Florida State official June 14th through the 16th, Notre Dame 18th through the 20th of June, and then he's got NC State the 21st through the 23rd. So he's got Florida State, he's got South Carolina, has North Carolina, has NC State. He has offers also from Auburn, Boston College, Arkansas, Duke, Illinois, Georgia Tech, Indiana, Kentucky, Maryland, Nebraska, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, UCF, Virginia Tech, Vanderbilt, West Virginia are his power 4 offers, Shaun. Long, fast kid coming the 18th and the 20th. This is a very interesting one, Shaun. Very interesting because I talked to Malik and I have a article that's coming out, I believe tomorrow, right? I had the offer piece on him yesterday or the official visit piece on him last night. And then I'll have the full in-depth interview that I had with him. I think he's very intrigued by Notre Dame, Shaun, but I also think that he's going into these official visits not really 100% sure what school is on top of his leaderboard right now. Like, I don't know if he has a leader. I think official visits are going to be really big for Malik Clark. Notre Dame is a school, and he uses almost word for word. They're fresh to me. I need to learn more. I've heard from a lot of most of their coaches at this point. I feel like I could fit in, but ultimately, this will be indicated by what happens on that official visit. Does he feel like he's at home? Does he feel like he's not? I really think that this is going to be a big official visit weekend for him, or official visit period for him, Shaun, especially to Notre Dame, because this is a school that's very foreign to him at this point.
That means it sounds like, I'll say sounds like there's some ground to make up. That's just an honest assessment. Everything is fresh. I have relationships with coaches of the programs, very interested. But I have to get to know them. I have to see if I can really fit and confirm that. I think I can, but I want to confirm it. I want to make sure it's real because I have a good vibe and I have a good feeling That's why I'm taking the visit, but I just want to make sure that it's real. And if he visits and it's real, then Notre Dame could be in play, and we'll see how things play out. But I love it, man. Do your due diligence if you're Notre Dame.
Yes.
Do your due diligence. Don't leave any stone unturned in this situation. And then get the guys that you want, close, and coach their butts off. Coach them.
One interesting note, Shaun, and I talked to you about this before the visit. He does have the last official visit of the wide receivers that are remaining on the board. I just think that's interesting to follow, right? Because, I mean, it's possible, Shaun, and like this is just speculation on my part. I mean, if Notre Dame hits the straight on a couple of the wide receivers that are on the board, then is there even going to be a spot open when Malik Clark is supposed to make the official visit to Notre Dame? I don't know. Like it's going to be an interesting situation to see. Like, is there a definite spot when Malik is going to take the visit? Is there not one? Like, where do things trend from here is just an interesting thing to see. So as of right now, though, and I would love to hear people's opinions in the chat because we have over 400 people in the chat right now. Shout out to you all, by the way, for being here on the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour. Who are the wide receivers you want to see in this class? I'm telling you right now, there's potentially 3 wide receivers that you can still take in this class on top of Elijah Burris and Jerome Bettis Jr. What's the 3-man combination you want, right? Because I think that there's a world where this could be a couple different situations, right? If you flip the momentum with Derek Meadows, and let's say you get a Derek Meadows, right? You get Derek Meadows. Maybe you're still able to get it to Tanook Hines. Maybe you go after a John Anthony Hall. Would you guys want a 3-man class of Tanook Hines, Dylan Robinson, and Malik Clark? Like, what is your ideal 3-man class to end the wide receiver group to push it potentially to 5? Is there a 3 that would get you juiced up? I mean, I feel like most people would say, give me the 3 best, right? But Brandon, you don't know that, Brandon. I'm just telling you, man, you don't know that, sir. I'm not talking about publicly, right? I'm saying, but you understand who that 3-man class potentially is, right? There's that possibility is certainly on the table. I wouldn't say that absolutely that they won't be filling that up. Okay. I'm talking silently. Okay. I'm talking silently because we know how this official visit stuff works, right? We understand how it works. And I'm playfully talking to Brandon, obviously, joking, obviously, but when these official visits happen, there's typically a confirmation that happens, right? Like, I'm coming or I'm not coming, right? Like, those things typically happen. So, like, silently, like, yes, by June 18th, there won't be 3 more wide receivers committed to the University of Notre Dame, but like silence obviously happen in those types of situations, right? So we shall see how things end. But again, I would love to hear your guys' conversation, right? I mean, Taylor still might take a visit to Notre Dame. I don't think that one's super realistic, but like, what's the 3-man class that you would be happy with? Is there a 3-man class that you would be happy with? Because personally, I would say this, and I said this already. If you got me, because again, I don't think Dylan Robinson's super likely at this point, but if you got me a 3-man class of Dylan Robinson, or Derek Meadows isn't likely. I think I said Dylan Robinson. Derek Meadows is not likely at this point. If you got me a 3-man class of Dylan Robinson, Tanook Hines, and John Anthony Hall or Malik Clark, I'd be good. We're good to roll there. We're good to roll. So 3-man classes. What's the spot that you guys would like? Where would you feel about that class? Would love to hear from the chat, obviously, as we move in to the rest of the show. Brandon, stop being so pessimistic in the chat, man. Joking, obviously, but stop being so pessimistic. All right, Shaun, we're going to move on to our last segment. This is going to be a fun one, guys. We're going to have a good conversation about 2026 recruiting. Before we do, though, thank you all for being with us, first and foremost. Make sure you hit that like button. Hit that notification bell on YouTube. Share this podcast as well. Subscribe, as always, on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify. We don't discriminate, but leave a 5-star review rating over there. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Boards.irishbreakdown.com. We would be very much appreciated if you guys would go sign up there. It's very economical. We feel like we put out a lot of good content. I hope you guys agree. I don't think you'd be on the channel if you didn't think there was at least quality content, even if you disagree with some of the perspective at times. Make sure you sign up there, and also, as always, check out irishbreakdown.com. I know that Brian had put it out for the board members. They already knew about this, but he put it on Twitter, Shaun, just so people know. No more affiliation with Sports Illustrated. It's fully on Athlon now. So make sure that you're on the Athlon side of irishbreakdown.com as well. We're talking to some 2026 recruiting here, folks, very soon. Appreciate, though, for checking out this segment of the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Shawnee, 2026 recruiting. Why am I so excited to have this conversation? Why? Because Notre Dame already has their quarterback in 2026, sir. So the sky is the limit. Notre Dame already has a commitment from 2026 Lake Mary, Florida high school quarterback Noah Grubbs. And we know what that does, Shaun. Me and Brian talked about this a lot on Saturday when Noah Grubbs officially committed to Notre Dame. We know who the spokesperson, who the symbol of the 2026 class is, because that's what a quarterback is ultimately. They're the leader, right? So now we have a year and a half of just determining who is this class going to be? Who are we going to look? What's it going to look like ultimately? So I want to open up this 2026 conversation, guys. There's going to be obviously a lot of wide receiver centric conversation here because Noah Grubbs is a quarterback and he's got to have some wide receivers to throw to, obviously. But we're going to leave it a little bit more open-ended as well. Me and Shaun are going to list some of our 2026 wants in this class. Some guys that we hope Notre Dame is able to make a big run on. And so there's going to be a realistic field here. We're not just going to throw out Jackson Cantwell because, like, hey, Jackson Cantwell is great, but, like, also, I don't know if he's realistic to Notre Dame right now. Like, we're not going to throw guys out there. You know, Jared Curtis, 2 quarterbacks in the class. Why not? Doesn't make any sense, right? We're going to be a little bit more realistic with this conversation. Shaun, I want to start with a guy that I put on the message board, a little intel piece a few days ago on Saturday, actually, that is pretty good friends with a new 2026 quarterback commit to the University of Notre Dame. Okay, so a little bit of intel here for you all. A little bit of this is what you would get at the message board at irishbreakdown.com if you guys did frequent the site and you guys, okay? 2026 Douglas County, Georgia, Douglasville athlete Aaron Gregory, Shaun, listed by Rivals as the number 20 overall player in the 2026 class, by ESPN as number 32 overall player in the 2026 class, by On3 as the number 32 overall player in the 2026 class. Why do I say all three, Shaun? Because that means there's a little bit more consensus about this kid, right? That means that a lot of people think that this kid's a stud, okay? Brandon's asking, will they take Gregory as a wide receiver as strictly as a safety? Brandon, when he was offered, my knowledge was it was as a safety, okay? It was at a safety. But this kid's a big-time wide receiver. He's a big-time athlete, Shaun. He has a personal relationship with Noah Grubbs. The two work out together, Shaun. They are friends. They are friendly. So, again, not saying that this is a foregone conclusion. I'm definitely not saying that Aaron Gregory ends up in the class of Notre Dame. But what I am telling you is that Notre Dame's got a connection here with an Aaron Gregory, and I would not be surprised if Notre Dame is able to push for Aaron Gregory tremendously, okay? And Shaun, I've watched this kid film, 6'2", 170 pounds, can run like the wind, can play safety, can play wide receiver. I was looking at a lot of his background stuff. Man, this kid is an impressive athlete out of the state of Georgia. And Shaun, what a breath of fresh air that I can say a big-time athlete out of the state of Georgia is not off limits potentially to Notre Dame, and they'll have a chance there. What a world we're living in here today, sir.
That's a pretty good first pick, Double R. That's a pretty good first pick,
brother. Elite players on
I see why you went first. You see, I see why you want to take him off the board. You want to take him off the board. You played that nicely. That's a good pick for your first pick.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Hey, so it's a little bit insight into the intel I put out there as far as the personal relationship with Noah Grubbs and him. You would have had that on Saturday. And also, Shaun, like, I just want to put it out there because this is a Notre Dame kid. I actually talked to Aaron recently, Shaun. He was boasting about his grades this past year, man. I was like, oh, how'd the school year finish up? All A's and a high B in advanced, like, chemistry or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay. I got you, man. I got you. All right. So high academic kid. state of Georgia. Yes.
Sounded like he was a little irritated by that B as well.
Yeah, he was. He sent an I forget what emoji he sent, but you could definitely tell it bothered him a little bit that he only got a B. You know what I mean? But yeah,
I love that. I love that, and I love this young man. Someone put in the chat like, yeah, he's. I think they're going to get him in the secondary. I know if I was Mike Mickens, I would be standing in the middle of the table, stomping my feet like, yo.
Shaun, is this not the perfect kid where Mike Brown and Mike Mickens are like fighting to the death for this kid? Right?
Absolutely. All right. I mean, Notre Dame fencing is pretty good. I suggest they go over to the fencing building and duel it out. Duel it out for Aaron Gregory. Absolutely.
All right, let me kick it to you, man. I got a few more on my list. A player that is on your wish list for 2026 recruiting now that we already know who the quarterback is.
I'm different. See, I'm
different.
I kind of thought I had an idea where you were going to go.
Okay.
Who your picks might be. So I'm going to start out with my Chicago bias.
Do it.
Right. And not
I almost put a Chicagoland guy on this list, but I left him off.
I don't want individuals. I want 2 of 3. That's my first desire. Okay. Who are the 3 defensive linemen out of Chicago? Mikael Blade, Braden Jones, Gabe Hill. You got to get 2 of the 2 of the 3 have to end up in this 26 class, ladies and gentlemen. 2 of the 3. If you want to go get some of the top guys, some of the top 50 guys, by all means, go after them. But if you want depth along that defensive line, along with great ability and upside, you get 2 of the 3. Mikael Blade, Braden Jones, Gabe Hill. Go get him. That's my number 1.
I especially considered both Mikael Blade. I honestly, Shaun, literally have this thing that I'm writing on right here. And I literally have Mikael Blade's name off to the side because he was going to be another guy I was going to mention. He really was, because I love Braden Jones as well. But man, there's something about Mikael Blade, dude, the Hillcrest defensive end. Like, there's just something about that kid that I think is special. Like, I really think that kid is special. So Mikael Blade, honorable mention for me. No doubt about it. You need that type of kid. Agree 100%.
Yep, I agree. That's my biggest desire. That's my biggest desire, especially coming off of what one may classify as a disappointing cycle on the defensive line, a confusing recruiting cycle with the 25 class. I think most fans would even agree with that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. So, yes, 100%, Shaun. Actually, I don't want to just skate over that comment you just made. Right, Notre Dame had a chance to really kill Chicago in 2025, and they didn't kill Chicago. Like, they did well in Chicago, but they didn't kill it. Right, you literally could get most of your defensive line class in 2026 just by nailing down Chicago and Indiana. Like, that's all you have to do, because that even goes into JJ Finch out of Warren Central in Indianapolis as well. Like, you could have a big impact in your quote unquote backyard, quote unquote home base. Like, that's what you need to do in 2026. Agree completely. Number 2 for me, Shaun, a guy that we've talked about on this podcast already. Safety recruiting, tremendous in 2025, especially if they get Jadon Blair. But I want to make a strength even stronger, brother. I'm going down to Flowood, Mississippi, Hartfield Academy. Safety, Brillan Wack in the 2026 class. We already talked about it after his visit to Notre Dame. Visit to Notre Dame for the Irish Invasion, Shaun, and also earning an offer. Feel really good about where things are with Brillan Wack. He meshed with the other players on campus. Obviously, Deuce Knight involved in that conversation. Really like the coaches from the early conversations I've had back and forth with Brillan. I think that Notre Dame is going to be a player with Brillan Wack down the stretch here, right? Down the crux. And 5-star safety, 5-star defender out of the Deep South, out of the state of Mississippi. Sign me up. Get Brillan Wack to South Bend and change that narrative, sir.
See, what we're doing here, ladies and gentlemen, is I'm letting Double R go after the top guys, the top 50 guys to 5 stars. I'm letting fill your list up with the 5 stars. Shaun Davis is going to give you the depth. I'm going to give you the depth guys. I'm going to give you that 1B to that 1A, right? That gives you least amount of drop off due to injury or other things unforeseen. So once again, I'm going to package it up and I'm going to show my bias, right? Because Noah Grubbs needs somebody to throw to. Grubbs needs somebody to throw to. And he just watched 2 guys yesterday, both from the Chicago area. Both showed out. We already talked about one in Narcia Rankin, but there's another kid out of Wheaton. That's a little bit further than most suburbs. Wheaton's out there now. Wheaton's out there. You're talking about maybe an hour drive to get to Wheaton, bro. So they're on the outskirts of whether or not people can consider them Chicago or Chicagoland. But there's a kid named Zachary Washington. 3-star.
Who did well yesterday.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, he's different. He's an outside guy. Narcia Rankin, inside guy. Zachary Washington, outside guy. Talented kid, man. You're going to watch his film. You're going to love it. St. Francis, 3-star currently. I think he's going to end up being a 4-star, 6'2", 175. Let me tell you, what Narcia Rankin doesn't have, he has. He has that speed. He is polished at the position, and he's just as good as an athlete. Maybe not as much upside as Narcia Rankin, but I want to see one of the two. That's all I'm asking. One of the two. One of the two Chicago receivers needs to be in the 26th class, Double R. Just one of them.
Your whole list is Chicago. Is that what you're telling me right now?
Look, I said you come to Chicago to get your depth. What have I been saying? Go get the top kids. Go get the kids from Flowood, Florida, IMG. Go get Double R. Talk about those kids. I'm going to give you the depth. I'm going to give you the kids from Chicago. I'm going to give you the kids from Andrean. I'm going to give you the kids from Warren Central. I'm going to give you the kids from up in Wisconsin. That's what I'm going to give you.
I'm waiting for Rico Schreiber next, the Marist offensive tackle. I'm waiting for
it. Rico didn't make my list, but let me tell you something. I heard some really good things from other Catholic League players on yesterday about Rico Schreiber. Some really good things. Really good things. I'll leave it at that.
All right. So Shaun's got his Chicago hat on. You hear it all right now. I want to go to one, Shaun. Wide receiver, obviously, is a big part of this conversation. I already gave you one in Aaron Gregory that can play wide receiver if that's where you choose to play him. I'm going to give you another wide receiver. His name, San Antonio, Texas, Madison wide receiver, Jordan Clay, 6'2", 6'3", 195 pounds, Shaun. He is also a tremendous 110 high hurdler and also a 300-meter hurdler. State champion also in the 110 high hurdles as a sophomore. Tremendous talent, man. Absolutely tremendous. Length, explosiveness, smoothness. This kid's a pure outside boundary receiver that can push the ball vertically, has length to win above the rim. Big fan of Jordan Clay. He's a high academic kid who says all the right things about Notre Dame. He's been to Notre Dame in the past. He's not going to be an easy pull out of the state of Texas, like not an easy pull at all, especially because University of Texas is high on him as well. But I like Jordan Clay a lot, man. Length, athleticism, you need more of this type of kid. Big fan of Jordan Clay in the 2026 class.
That's a darn good pick, Double R.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Darn good pick. I like him too, man. I like him too.
All right. Well, you got anybody else?
Yes. Let me tell you something, man. This last spot was hard, right? Because I had my Chicago trend. And I said, you know what? I don't want to be too biased, right? With all of my spots. But then I had one kid. I was going to go to IMG for one kid, right? And I said to myself, I don't want to put him on my list because there's really other safeties that I just really like better. I could put him on my list, but I really like other safeties in the class better. Then I said, you know what the trend has been? And I'll keep it going, right? Because I'm all for depth, and I'm giving you depth on my list. But then I'm going to keep the NFL bloodlines going. I'm going to keep the NFL bloodlines going. So I'm going to say Thomas Davis Jr.
Oh, that was my next one. That was my next one. You jerk. That was my next one. All right.
I'm going to say Thomas Davis Jr. I'm going to keep the trend going. Keep the party going, as they say. Absolutely. It's kind of like Jesus when he water line. Keep the party going. I like it. I like him
a lot. I like him a lot. Yeah. Well, I was gonna use him, or I was gonna do Talanoa Ely, who is the other linebacker out of the state of California, continuing the California pipeline. But yeah, dude, there's just something about Thomas Davis Jr., man. I like that kid a lot. He moves around in space well. He's physical. Obviously, he's very intelligent with who his father was, right? Notre Dame's in a pretty good early spot with a guy like Thomas Davis Jr., man. Like they've been doing some good work there. Yeah, so that's a good one, Shaun. I will defer to you on that one, my friend. That was a good pick. I like that pick. I like the pick a lot because it was literally on my list. So obviously I liked it. I thought it was a good pick. Yeah. Next one, Shaun, pass catcher, not a wide receiver per se, but we're going to go with a pass catcher here. Brandon said something in the chat, which I agree with. Need a tight end on this list. I could go Kendra Harrison because I don't think Kendra Harrison is
low hanging fruit.
It is. I was going to go Kendra though, but then I was like, I think there are more realistic tight ends that are on the board. I'm going to go with St. George, Utah, Pineview tight end Brock Harris, man. 6'6", 235 pounds. Actually has a visit scheduled for Notre Dame on the 4th. What day is the 4th? That's tomorrow, right? So he's going to be on campus on Tuesday for the first time. Shaun, this kid is legit. They have him. Actually, 247 Composite has him ranked as a top number 22 player in the country and a 5-star, dude. Length, can run, athletic as heck. We had 55 receptions for over 600 yards. Impressive offer list. He's got Alabama. He's got Auburn. He's got the Arizona schools. He's got Florida State. He's got Georgia. He's got LSU. He's got Miami. He's got Michigan, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Oregon. Big time offer list. But I think that Notre Dame has had some good momentum so far with Brock Harris, and I think that could increase when he comes to South Bend this week.
Yeah, the tight end position, the tradition continues, right? But I'm very interested in seeing how things play out in tight end recruiting based upon the tight end usage, right? Because in the passing game, the tight end has been featured a lot.
Right.
Now, I want to see if that begins to change and the view of tight end begins to change. I still think overall, the development and the NFL success and the draft success is going out as a positive, but I'm very interested in seeing how things change. Because like you said, if Mitchell Evans is healthy, based upon what we saw last year, Mitchell Evans was once again trending to be one of those tight ends that could be a top 100 pick.
Sure.
Possibly in the NFL draft. Hopefully he comes back healthy and he can begin that. Cooper Flanagan, all the Eli Raritan, plenty in store. Cupboards are full. It's not like it's there. So we're talking about a situation where, we're focused on getting one, and then we can't forget Jack Larson. And now it's just like, who are we going to take? Who's going to be the tight end for the 26th class, right? So
absolutely, yep,
that's a great position to be in. That's what's so dope about that, bro? You can save tight end for like the bottom of the list, like for so many reasons. Like confidently, we feel like we're going to get one of the top guys. Like I know Notre Dame's like, we're going to get one of the top tight ends. We're not worried about that. It's not like wide receiver. Like, it's like offensive line. We're going to get some of the best offensive linemen in the country. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. That's a good pick, though, bro.
I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, Brock Harris is a darn good pick, dude. I appreciate you not going for the low-hanging fruit, especially when we talk about being realistic.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I know Brandon was joking about it, that Kendra said that Notre Dame was like his dream offer or something like that. I mean, we've heard that story at this point, right? Before. I mean, if he gets to campus, then maybe I can start talking about Kendra Harrison as a realistic. I'll say this, Shaun. I said this on the offer day, right? On Pot of Gold. Kendra Harrison's a top 5 player in this class, in my opinion, in 2026. Like, that kid's ridiculous. That is a legit 5-star every single year. Like, no doubt about it. But is he realistic? I don't know, man. I'm not totally sure about that one yet. So get him to campus. Maybe that'll be a conversation we'll have. I don't know. But regardless, I just don't think he's over. I think Brock Harris is a much more realistic option for Notre Dame right now than Kendra Harrison. Not saying that Kendra is out of the realm of possibility or unrealistic. I just think that Brock is more realistic, if that makes sense.
So. And then, I mean, being realistic, but just not making the list. I'm like, dude, Notre Dame can just go get a kid like J.C. Anderson if they had. I mean, the kid is a Brock. Dude, he's a Cal Rudolph clone. Just
very
movement.
He's a lot like Kyle Rudolph, Shaun. That was a great comp by you. He moves similarly to him. He's high cut like him. He's not the quick change of direction kid, but he's a long, good straight line athlete. Like, there is a lot.
Yeah, you remember, what was that, a 93-yard touchdown Cal caught against Michigan?
Do you remember and another guy that was a similar like body type was you remember when Troy Nicholas had that long touchdown? It was like a 70-yarder or something like that, where you're just like, that's a big long dude that can run pretty good, man.
Yeah, there's nothing like a tight end 9-yard line on a long touchdown.
It's really not, dude.
Touchdown
Just
reception.
down the seam
You can
like
just
that.
see
Like,
it.
wild.
Oh, you can see they pick up an extra 15 pounds as they get to like the 15.
Yeah, but it's those long legs, man. You're still like, oh, they're still eating grass, though. They're still eating grass. Like, it's still happening, right? All right, well, I have one more, Shaun. I don't know if you had any more that you wanted to bring to the table, but I did have one more.
Yeah, I have one more guy.
Okay.
I kept trying to find a reason to put Zach Ford on my list because I really do like the kid. Like I said,
I like Zach Ford a lot. And he's
I like him a
realistic, which is
lot.
great.
Yes, he is realistic, right?
Yeah.
I don't know the level of realism or being realistic. I really Albert Hill.
Albert Hill, yeah. The Ohio kid.
I really do. I like the Ohio kid. I do. And
Notre Dame likes him a lot too. They like him a lot. No doubt.
Yeah.
He was an early offer, man. He was a pre-pot of gold guy. Like he's been on an offer for a while now over at Hill.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it reminds man, look, the conviction. This is what you have to have, right? You in the scouting world, whatever, you have to have conviction. Right? That's what I see with this kid. You talked about when his offer came, I'm like, okay, Mike Mickens sees something.
Mm-hmm.
And that gives me confidence. Like, okay, now in Ohio, battling Ohio State, Michigan.
And if I had to predict down the road when a decision's made, I do think this could be a Notre Dame Ohio State battle in the end.
Yeah. So let me tell you something. If Mike Mickens goes and gets what is perceived possibly as the best defensive back in Ohio, man, let me tell you something. The sky's the limit with defensive back recruiting.
No doubt. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that continues to trend, man, because I think Notre Dame has put in a lot of great work with Albert Hill, Shaun, but as Archer says, and it's not completely false, the best in Ohio do typically stay in Ohio if Ohio State wants them, right? So it's going to be a tough pull, but Notre Dame's a threat there. They're 100% a threat there. He's an Archbishop Hoban guy, right? I always want to mix him up, but yeah, he's Archbishop Hoban. Last guy, Shaun, then we'll get out of here. Last guy, one of the newer wide receiver guys on the 2026 board, okay? One of the more newest wide receivers. Purcellville, Virginia, Woodgrove wide receiver Connor Salmon is my guy that I want to bring to the table here, Shaun. Very interesting player, to say the least. 6'1", 190 pounds, ending with a big-time athlete. Shaun, sophomore in high school, that ran a 10.4 400 meter. Sophomore in high school that ran a 10.4 400 meter dash this past year. Big time athlete. Now, I don't think he plays against the best competition, which I know some people will not like. Okay. But a 10.44, that translates, brother. That translates. 21.18 in the 200. Also a very good 55-meter sprinter indoors as well. Ran a 6.42. That speed translates, sir. Absolutely translates. I remember looking up his stats too, Shaun. They were actually, I'm going to look at my article that I wrote on him with an interview because his stats were also just kind of bananas, man. Kind of bananas. And again, I know that he doesn't play against the best competition in the world. But in 10 games last year, he had 53 receptions for 1,107 yards and 16 touchdowns as a sophomore in high school in the state of Virginia, Shaun. I like that kid, man. I think that kid values Notre Dame. They'll have to get him on campus, see where things trend. But dang, that kid can fly, dude. Absolutely fly. Connor Salmon is my last addition to a wish list. So I had Jordan Clay. I had Connor Salmon. I also had Aaron Gregory that could play wide receiver. So, hey, man, I got Noah Grubb some help, brother. I got Noah Grubb some help, okay?
Yeah, and that's the beautiful thing. The one thing we can say is every person that we name on our list and the guys that we hope will be in the 26th class are really talented. athletic, and one thing that's in bunches is speed. One thing we all can agree that speed is a need. Speed is something the staff seems to be going after. And I love it. I love it. I think everyone we named has tremendous upside. I don't think we named anyone that's like,
well, you're Chicago guys, so they're a little lower.
see how he takes shots. You see how he takes. Now he just professed his love for one Mikael Blade.
I do love
and what he thinks about him. But then
I really like Braden Jones a lot too, man. Braden Jones is the ball. Yeah.
See? Yeah. Just don't fight it. Don't fight it. I love you, Jersey guys. I'm not about to sit here in front. I love you guys.
Sure.
Especially the Hoopers. Yeah, you got some Hoopers.
We do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's some Hoopers here. There's no doubt about that. Folks, thank you so much for joining us today. Before you leave, hit that like button for us. Make sure you're subscribed to the podcast. Hit that notification bell. Go sign up at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Continued recruiting intel. I'm telling you right now, there's some big official visitors coming this weekend. We're going to have some more intel coming out from the Irish Invasion this past weekend as well. Make sure you go sign up there. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, whatever, make sure you subscribe and hit a 5-star review there as well. That's Shaun Davis. I'm Ryan Roberts. Thank you all again so much for joining the Notre Dame Recruiting Hour here on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Have a great week. Talk to you soon.